What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and man, all I can say is we're back. Alright, so we're gonna release our rentals today. I was supposed to do this, a couple days ago, but I got a little busy, guys. Some of you know this already. But during the day, I do full-time basketball coaching. We are two-time defending champs, and right now we're trying to wrap up the end of the regular season. We're pushing for playoffs and ultimately trying to go for that three-peat run. So it's been rather busy on my end here, but at least now we finally found a little bit of a break to get out these rentals for regulationG. Finally, the format is live, right? So we're gonna go through all eight rentals. Yes, 8, not 1, not 2, not 5, 8 rental teams. We'll share you the codes, and of course, we'll give out the pokepastes. We'll explain our EV spreads and show why we EV'd them the way we did. And also just the fact that I had some help to be able to make all of this possible. I'm gonna shout out some of our rental code makers, because I only have 5 slots. I can't even make both Calyrex, Ice Rider, or Shadow Rider teams, of course. So I did have some help here. So we'll shout out each person that did help me along the way with some of these rentals there, because we got to give credit where it's due. Because some of this stuff I just cannot do by myself. So glad that I have help making some of these. Because again, I am a little bit tied up right now. But anyway, let's start off here with rental number 1. All right, so coming up on rental number 1 here, we have our Calyrex Shadow Rider team, and I wanted to take a different approach with Shadow Rider with our first January rental. I could have easily just made this a balanced squad here with the Instant Rillaboom, Urshifu, Ogerpon, Heartflame, Redirection support, and then maybe add in a Raging Bolt and something like a Clefairy, right? So that kind of team is pretty prevalent throughout. It's like one of the best Shadow Rider teams, of course, but it's kind of boring. And at this point, with 3 months of regulationG already under our belts, I did not want to do that again. Okay, so rather than just remake that, I'd rather just take a different direction this time around and try something a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more hyper offensive, and just go with something like this. So here we have Life Orb, Calyrex, Shadow Rider, but we have some offensive tools with the Chi-Yu support and the Whimsicott Tailwind idea. So now what we can do is the Chi-Yu lets the Calyrex do even more damage, and then the Whimsicott also just gives you Tailwind support, which is great into like the other Tailwind teams. You also have Helping Hand, so Helping Hand, Astral Barrage, and Expanding Force is just going to do so much damage, right? So now we also added Substitute here, right? And the whole point of this is this will give you some ideas to play within the Trick Room game. So the turns that they want to go for Trick Room, you can go for Substitute Calyrex, and then next turn just go for Protect. So now you've already stalled out 2 turns of Trick Room, and then on the 3rd turn your Substitute is already still there, right? So I wanted to do that, and then at the same time, just take advantage of the offensive tools on the rest of the team. So you still have Ogerpon Cornerstone here along with Urshifu. So you can do so much damage with these two all together. Just raw Surging Strikes, and then just Ogerpon Cornerstone. Just having Sturdy in this format is so good. You deny Calyrex's their boost. You get to stay on the field for another turn. You guarantee a live or guarantee a double tap for a KO there, which means your other slot gets to stay on the field for at least another turn potentially. And then at the same time, look, you've got Indeedee here for the terrain, which is great against Miraidon teams. You get to remove their terrain so they do less damage, and then you can do more damage because now you have the Expanding Force spam shenanigans, right? So you can do that too. Now, the only thing that you have to be aware of course, is just the wide guard stuff. But of course, wide guard you can just easily play around and just remove the wide guard user with your single target offensive mons, something like Ogerpon and the Urshifu. Just make that trade, right? So even if they KO your Pokemon, as long as you can remove the wide guard user, then that just frees up the Calyrex and the Indeedee Chi-Yu stuff later on, and then you can just sweep after that. So yeah, here's rental number 1. So now what we can do is just show you the EV spread so you can see how we EV'd our Pokemon, and then we'll be doing that throughout every single rental, as we always have done. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so looking at the spreads here, basically it's a very straightforward team in terms of like a lot of these mons. The only one is the Whimsicott here. So basically putting it at 140 speed investment puts it at a stat of 169, which allows you to outspeed a Landorus Incarnate, so this way you don't get Sludge Bombed to death. And that just means you naturally get to outspeed another Chi-Yu or Entei, which means you outspeed the base 100s altogether. After that, the 236 HP investment along with the 100 SpDef is meant to calc for the Miraidon Electric Drift, modest 252 choice specs in electric terrain. So I don't even need Indeedee's terrain to be able to survive it. The fact that I can do that without Indeedee's help is amazing. So I figured, you know what, this is actually a pretty good spread. Let's keep it and then just dump the rest into defense, and that's really all I need out of my Whimsicott per se. After that, you know, my Indeedee here, almost 252. I just accounted for Rillaboom swapping in and changing my terrain. Just want to opt for the optimal HP for the grassy terrain recovery, which again, you know, just a factor of 16, which is why I put it at 176 HP. And then just putting 20 special defense there just gives it a nice even number for the Psychic Seeds boost. So this way I don't get an odd number, which would round down my bulk. So I just kept it like that. The Urshifu and the Chi, of course, are going to be 252, along with the Ogerpon, because again, you have a choice item here. You've got the Sash. You have a hidden Sash in the Ogerpon there. So I just kept it as it is. And then the Calyrex, of course, max speed timid just lets you have some play into the mirror matchup. And then I just have a tiny little bit of HP for Life Orb optimization. But otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward team, as are most hyper-offensive teams in terms of their spreads. But yeah, anyway, so that is rental number 1. Let's go ahead and look at rental number 2. Alright, so rental number 2 is our Calyrex Ice Rider team, and shout outs to Superbeard again for just helping us make the rental. They've done this before for us in Regulation G prior in the summer, so we thank them again for their services. So this one here, it's a very interesting squad also, just in terms of some of the tools here. You know, Pelipper is not a stranger to Calyrex Ice Rider teams. I've always liked Pelipper wide guard support with Calyrex because, first of all, you get to have weather control, but not just any weather control. You have rain, which is great against the fire weakness that Calyrex might have, so you're able to at least take that away. And then at the same time, you get to put pressure on aggressive fire types like Incineroar or even something like Entei with the Pelipper, right? Then you have the redirection support and fake out pressure from Ogerpon and the Rillaboom here. So it's the same Ogerpon as the last one. Now you just have harder hitting power whips. And in the Rillaboom, same thing. You have fake out pressure along with Woodhammer, Grassy Glide, and then the typical U-turn with Terra Fire. Standard set there. But look at this Urshifu here. The fact that we have the option for coaching here makes all the difference. Because look at your coaching targets. You can coach the Calyrex, okay? So now you're giving it an immediate attack boost. And then you also give it a defense boost, right? So this Calyrex stays on the field and it can live to tell the tale, right? That means you can take a little bit away from its attack EV's investment and put a little bit more in special defense and just make it super bulky, right? You can even coach the Ogerpon here. So imagine +1 Ivy Cudgels, Power Whips, and then Rillaboom, same thing. Priority +1 Grassy Glides, you know, +1 Woodhammers. These are very, very strong moves that you can click into the Rillaboom, right? And then you have a couple special attackers in the Pelipper and the Raging Bolt here. So Life Orb, Raging Bolt. We made this thing bulky yet slow in Trick Room. So this way you can do a bunch of damage, you know, with Thunder Bolts and Thunderclaps. Just chip things away with your Urshifu, and then just let Calyrex clean up in the endgame where you start picking up KOs with Glacial Lance on the, you know, from things that have already been chipped down. So shoutouts to all Kyle, by the way. They are playing this variant right now in a lot of Limitless tours, and they're doing very, very well. And I like their build, and I realized that it kind of fits the way I want to play the Calyrex a little bit. So we pretty much just, you know, came up with our rendition of their squad. So shout outs to all Kyle for once again coming up with another pretty good squad. We just simply assigned our own Terras and our own EV spreads to this. Okay, so speaking of EV spreads, let's take a look and let's show you how we did our EVs for this. Alright, so here we are. So basically, if you look at our Ice Rider there, you see we have a pretty good amount of special defense there. And you might ask, what does this spread do with the 252 HP? So basically, this is meant to survive the Astral Barrage from a fellow Calyrex Shadow Rider. Life Orb, Timid 252. That is amazing, right? It's actually not an uncommon spread. This is something that was actually developed back in Sword and Shield. I just kind of remembered that spread and I just, you know, brought it here. And it just makes sense overall with something like coaching Urshifu, right? You're gonna get defense anyway from the coaching. So you might as well add to that by adding a little bit more investment in your special defense. And you can take a little bit off the attack because you're gonna get the +1 boost anyway from the coaching, right? So you can do that, and then after that, you know, once you steamroll, you don't really necessarily need any more quote-unquote attack, right? You're just going to be overkilling things. I'd rather just stay on the field and keep dishing out damage, right? So I pretty much just, you know, use that spread there. The Ogerpon is the same spread as always. The Pelipper is a modest set here just to be able to do, you know, good damage while still having decent speed. Speaking of good damage, how about the Rillaboom here? With this speed investment, you get to outspeed another modest Pelipper, so we get to go first before our own Pelipper here. And then Adamant 116, of course, for the bump there, and just being super bulky overall, and getting a nice even number there for defense for the coaching boost is also going to be appreciated. And then 76 special defense just puts it at triple digits, a flat stat of 100 in terms of its special defense. And then of course you have the assault vest to help you even further with this. So the Rillaboom is going to be pretty bulky if it even gets like one coaching boost, so just keep your eyes peeled for that. The Raging Bolt here, like we said, it's just meant to do big damage in Trick Room here. 4 speed investment is really all you need. So we might as well just go modest 252, but just straight modest 252. And then we optimize the HP for a Life Orb chip, putting at a stat of 219, which means you're going to only take 21 HP points of Life Orb per turn, as opposed to something like 22. And then just dump the rest that are left over into our defense there. The Choice Scarf Urshifu here, and Adamant 252 will be able to outspeed the Shadow Rider also. And that's also one of the benefits of having an Adamant Urshifu, with the stat of 149 here. You can outspeed the Shadow Rider's timid speed here. Okay, so that's going to be our Ice Rider rental. Let's move on into rental number 3. Alright, rental number 3 is our Miraidon squad. So this is one of the variations that we made in our Miraidon team building video. And one of our viewers managed to pick it up and use it and get top 8 in one of the recent, well, I shouldn't say recent now because we're in 2025, but in December there was one of those Spear Pillar tournaments, 300 plus person tournaments, and they got top 8 results with it. So obviously it's a good team. But now we've remade the squad here. And, it's not like the other Miraidon squads that have like the Water Strike Urshifu. I found more value with the Single Strike Urshifu, the Dark variant. It just puts on pressure into both Calyrexes. And I thought that's a very useful tool to have if you can put pressure into both with using one Pokemon here. So other than that, typical stuff here with Miraidon, Whimsicott, Iron Hands here. So of course Iron Hands gets to have an ability now. You get a nice solid attack boost there. You get to have Drain Punch, Wild Charge, and Heavy Slam here. So honestly, I was going back and forth with Heavy Slam and something like Low Kick. I think Low Kick may be a little bit better. I'm not so sure, but I think it might be. But I was having good value out of just clicking Heavy Slam into another mirror matchup where you just force him to also go Terra Fairy, and then Heavy Slam just kind of, does either picks up the KO or just deals so much damage altogether. So I felt like that was pretty good. And then after that, the Furgraph with the Electric Seed. Of course, you know what this is supposed to do. You get to deny priority moves. And then at the same time, you have Helping Hand with your Miraidon that you can just one-shot a lot of different things with Electro Drift. You have Helping Hand Volt Switch, especially with Rillaboom stuff. And then you can reset your terrain. You have also Ogre Pond Urshifu here. And I really like Heart Flame as well. Besides the Cornerstone, I think Heart Flame is also really, really strong. And you can make Firewater Grass Cores with the Ogre Pond, with this Ogre Pond and another Rapid Strike Urshifu, even though we're not using the Rapid Strike one. But still, you just Terra it, and it's just +1 attack boost, hits super hard with Ivy Cudgel, and just meant to do a lot of damage too, right? And then you also get the redirection support with Follow Me, so you can even protect your own Miraidon or even your own Urshifu, depending on the circumstance. You can even use Furgraph here on a timely switch in and just pick up KOs with Ivy Cudgel / Woodhammer, especially with Helping Hand there. So you know what you're getting out of this, right? And then the Iron Hands is pretty good into Terapagos because you do have that solid fighting coverage for that as well. And same thing with the Dark Urshifu. The Dark Urshifu just covers for a lot, right? You have your Terapagos matchup. You have your both Calyrexes technically as well, right? So I felt like the Dark Urshifu might get a little bit more usage as the format progresses this month and as we head into San Antonio there. I really like Dark Fu right now, so hopefully we'll see what happens moving forward. But again, this is our recent Miraidon variation. So let's take a look at the spreads here and let's see what we got. Alright, so with the Whimsicott here, it's the same Whimsicott as our other one. The only difference is that I have Terra Water on this one as opposed to Terra Dark, but it's the same exact EV spread there. The Miraidon here, so sometimes you'll find, almost max speed, but then they're modest variants. So I wanted to just play for the speed mirror, right? So sometimes you'll miss some KOs because you're timid, but the fact that you get to go first and not have to worry per se about potential speed ties, just, you know, makes other plays a little bit more viable, right? And then from here, the Iron Hands, I just put it at Brave Nature, so this way I can be able to play a little bit more in Trick Room. I did originally have some speed on this Iron Hands in the first rendition of the team, but I decided I think we should just take it out and just go like a little bit more special defense here, you know, survive some Landorus moves, and then from there just go max attack and deal big damage. The Ferrograph here, of course, you know, especially with Terra Water, you're able to survive Urshifu Water Strike, you know, with the Surging Strikes, and then, you know, just dumping the rest into special defense there. And then the Ogerpon Heartflame here, you know, with 212 speed investments, that puts you at 157. That'll outspeed max speed base 90. So imagine a Kyogre, right? You get to outspeed that. And then you have the bump in the attack stat with 84 investment as opposed to 76. This is just to round it out to an even number. So this way you get a little bit more value with the +1. And then 176 HP and 44 defense. That'll give you a decent roll against the Calyrex Glacial Lance without needing to Terra there. And of course, 164 HP puts it at the 176 mark, you know, which is of course optimal in Rillaboom terrain. And a lot of teams are going to try and bring Rillaboom because they want to take away Miraidon's turn. So I figured I might as well just optimize for that as well. And that's also why you see 84 HP on the Iron Hand. Same reason. It puts it at 240, which is another factor of 16 in that Rillaboom grassy terrain. Same thing with Ferrograph here. 228 HP puts it at a stat of 224. And for the exact same reason, just for that terrain optimal recovery. Okay, so that's it. That's Miraidon. And now we'll move on into rental number 4. All right, next up is Terapagos here. So this is almost the same way that you would try and support that Calyrex Shadow Rider balance team that we were mentioning, you know, in our first rental there. But I figured I wanted to try that with the Terapagos here, and it's been relatively successful, of course. It's a proven core. We've seen this variant top a lot of different tournaments. And I figured we might as well just make a rental out of it, so this way you guys get to try it too. So, of course, with Terapagos, you've got Calm Mind set up here. You also have Substitute here, just like the Calyrex Shadow Rider team that we have. But now you have ways to support both options here. So you could do double Fake Out Pressure with Incineroar and Rillaboom, and then you have the Ogerpon here being able to have redirection support and redirect things away from the Terapagos. And basically, you're playing that game of you're protecting the king and letting it set up and then potentially sweeping afterwards. And you have strong pressure with Urshifu here with Fake Out. Like, you know, Fake Out Surging Strikes is just busted. There's very few that can really take that. And then at the same time, you know, you just have things that can wear down the opponent with Incineroar, you know, with just parting shots and knockoffs and Will-O-Wisp, and just rendering them useless or a little bit less effective than normal for the Terapagos to take advantage later on in the end game, right? And we get to see the return of Ogerpon Heartflame here yet again, which also does very well with Rillaboom support, because now your Wood Hammers are just dealing more damage in the terrain. And then the Flutter Mane set is a little bit more supportive than normal. So we've got Icy Wind and Thunder Wave. So now you have pretty decent speed control options. We have the booster energy on the Flutter Mane here. So this way you can get the speed advantage against some Tailwind teams potentially, which is really good. So you either have the Thunder Wave hacks or you have the Icy Wind speed drops. You break Sash, and then from there, you know, stuff like Urshifu and others can just simply clean up there, right? So it's also good to have a Ghost and Normal typing here, you know, just to be able to support each other, because remember, Terapagos is weak to fighting coverage, right? So something like a Body Press from a Zamazenta, you don't want to take that. But what if you switch in your Flutter Mane? Now that Body Press just doesn't do any damage, and then you could just click Thunder Wave / you know, Moonblast, chip it down, and then in the end game, Terapagos can come back and better manage against the Zamazenta, for example. And you also have the Ogerpon there for that reason too, where you have pressure it with a fire type attack, and then maybe even forcing it to Terra, which means it might go like Terra Dragon to be able to resist, which means now you're weak to the Flutter Mane Fairy type attack there, and all the more reason to try and pressure with one Pokemon and clean up with another. Okay, so that's this team. So let's show you these rentals. Let's show you these EV spreads here for this particular squad. All right, so let's take a look at the EV spreads over here. So right away, the Ogerpon and the Rillaboom are pretty much the same exact spreads there. I'm just recycling the mons for different teams, but at least with those two, it's pretty consistent. The Flutter Mane here with the 140 speed stat, that's just meant to outspeed other Roaring Moons that are also max speed. So I wanted to at least go for that. And then literally dumping it into like HP and defense just lets you let a lot of different stuff. First of all, you live the Chin Pao attacks with Icicle Crash and whatnot, but you also get to live, depending on their investment, of course, some Urshifu Searching Strikes. And I think that's important sometimes when you can live big physical hits that normally would not be able to live if you didn't have like so much more investment. But I figured we don't need special attack on this kind of Flutter Mane here. We're getting most of that damage out of the Terapagos. I just need the Flutter Mane to do some damage, but ultimately help me maintain control with the Icy Wind and the Thunder Wave support. So if I can stay bulky on the field and click multiple Thunder Waves and click multiple Icy Winds, where I'm not getting one shot, that just means my team will have more chances for speed control later, and then I can take advantage of potential paralysis hacks, and then just go from there, right? The Incineroar there, the Impish 188 defense along with the 244 HP, that's going to survive Surging Strikes and Close Combat from 252 Jolly Urshifu. So I felt like that's also a pretty standard calc that you can go for. And then just 28 speed investment for potential mirrors. I get to see how much speed they have if they do outspeed me. And then the 44 Spadef was just literally the leftovers here. The Urshifu also, max speed adamants is always going to be good. Then you add Mystic Warrior. So this Urshifu is actually going to be doing a lot of damage as opposed to slapping on a Scarf, where yes, you do get more speed, but you have more bulk here on this end. Just because you are just adamant 156. If you have Mystic Warrior, that's just already adding to your damage. You don't necessarily need a whole lot more. You can have a little bit of attack investment and then just add more into your special defense. So this way you can survive potential KOs there. The Terapagos, 164 HP, that's optimized for Rillaboom terrain recovery as well as the item recovery for a multiple of 16. The 100 defense lets you live a close combat from another Urshifu. And then the 156 special attack investment is hitting the second bump in the Modest Nature. And then the rest, with the 12 speed F and 76 speed are just leftovers. A little bit of optimization with the special defense just to get a nice even number. With the +1 Calm Minds, and then the 76 defense is just like, yeah, whatever. So after that, that's pretty much it. So it's a pretty standard balanced Terapagos squad that you can easily replace some of these pieces and then just slap on a Calyrex Shadow Rider and reattach those pieces, okay? So that being said, let's move on to rental number 5. All right, next up is our Koraidon Rental, and this is one of the variants that we made in the team building video. So Koraidon, of course, with the ability to bring out the sun, you get to enable the partners. So of course, we're going to go with Raging Bolt and Flutter Mane over here. And then also the Chiyu, technically. Flutterfish is just such a really, really strong combination. And then you can always pivot out either the Chiyu or the Flutter Mane and bring in the Koraidon and boost the other partner, right? Raging Bolt here with Volt Switch just allows you to get back the weather control potentially in just even one turn, right? So what you would do, you could hard switch the Koraidon and then click Volt Switch with Raging Bolt and then bring in Koraidon on the previous slot and then just go from there. The Ogerpon Heart Flame also comes back yet again, another good solid redirector with Sturdy, and then you just get to hit things that are really hard for big damage. The one thing you always have to watch out with Koraidon is the weakness to the Calyrex Ice Rider, of course. Because again, you have Koraidon and Raging Bolt here, and they're both not going to do well into the Ice Rider, but at the same time, you do have Taunt on the Flutter Mane, and you also have Trick Room on your Fergraph, and then at the same time, you also can pressure with Chiyu, clicking, big overheat just to one-shot it. So you could, they're forced to lead a redirection Pokemon, and then they may even be forced to Terra right from the Rip-Go. So you can take advantage of that, just all things considered. Just be aware that Koraidon is a little bit, it does have a disadvantage into the Ice Rider matchup, but I feel like we can imagine it well here, just based off of these solid pieces. So with the Koraidon over here, it is a Jolly 252-252 set. It's another one of those base 135 speed tier mons, just like Chenpao, another Flutter Mane, for example, that fall within. The same with Miraidon, so I just want to go with the Jolly set just to try and win some of those speed mirrors. The Raging Bolt, super bulky here, 188 HP and 140 defense. That's just meant to survive the ice attacks from Glacial Lance and also the Chenpao Icicle Crash / Ice Spinner stuff. And then just dumping the rest into Spadef there, for leftover EVs, because the 124 investment into special attack is just meant to not only hit the benchmark, but you're going past the benchmark a little bit just to optimize with the photosynthesis boost, because it is 1.3. The Chiyu is pretty much the Chiyu as always, same with the Ogerpon Cornerstone here. The Flutter Mane has the same speed over on this one, but it does have a little bit of a different physical defensive investment, and this one is also just calced to survive the Chenpao ice attacks and also live the Sucker Punch easily from an Adamant Chinpow set there. Okay, the Ferrigaf is also pretty much the same, you know, with just 228 HP, 196 defense, also very solid in surviving Urshifu stuff. But at the end of the day, you're just meant to be super bulky and click your support moves like Helping Hand, for example, and the occasional Psychic Rooms and Foul Play into the big physical attackers. Okay, so that's it for Koraidon. Let's take a look at some of our next rentals here. Next up is the Sword Dog. So this is our Zacian Rental squad here. And I remember back with the first go around the Regulation G, I did not make a single Zacian Rental within those 3 months here. And I wanted to change that this time around. So here we are. We have a Zacian Rental. So it's a very common team that you might see with the Regidrago Tornadus idea. Of course, just forcing pins with the Regidrago and the Zacian. It's your fantasy core with Dragon Fairy Steel ideas. And ideally what you can do, of course, is just lead something like Tornadus or even Indeedee with the Regidrago. Just go for Dragon Energy and wipe the board, right? So if you want to be able to resist that, you have to go with either a Steel type or a potential Fairy type where you get whiffed with your Dragon Energy, and that's where the Zacian can come in. So if you commit the Terra Fairy to withstand the Dragon Energy, that is just going to make you weak in the long run against the Behemoth Blade with the Zacian here. So I've done this a lot against like Miraidon teams where I can just lead Tailwind and just go for Dragon Energy. They get scared and they go for the Terra Fairy immediately, and then I just clean everything else not named Miraidon, because then after that in the end game, Zacian wins the 1v1 with the Behemoth Blade just one-shotting it. After that, of course, speaking of Miraidon, that's what the Indeedee's here for. Again, you get to change the terrain. You get Terra Grass here to get around Amoonguss. And then the Tornadus, of course, here just powers up your own Urshifu here with Surging Strikes in Rain Dance. And then at the same time, the entire team just enjoys Tailwind. Speaking of Urshifu, look at this with the coaching idea yet again. And I really like coaching on this type of team as well, just because think about what Zacian is weak to in this generation. You're weak to Incineroar cycling with Intimidates, right? Because with the nerfs, Intrepid Sword only works once and only once. So now what you can do is just get around that and just go for coaching. And even if you get intimidated, you can just get your attack boost back and then just go with the coaching and then just one-shot it with a potential Terra Ground play, right? And then from here, you can also coach the Ogerpon Heart Flame. And now you get a nice solid Fire, Water, Grass core here with both of these two, where you just have Redirection and just go for Surging Strikes, or you can just go for Helping Hand Surging Strikes with the Indeedee here, and then you can also just go for coaching into the Ogerpon, make the Ogerpon be super bulky and super strong in terms of physical damage, and then you just have a lot going on here, with the support with the Ogerpon and the Indeedee here, just for your Urshifu, all things considered. And that's kind of how you want to play the team, just taking advantage of multiple modes. Yes, you can do the Regidrago hyper offense stuff, but don't underestimate Indeedee Urshifu leads. That was like an old Sword and Shield lead as well, back in like Series 7, for example. And if you wanted to get to the Urshifu, you had to get through the Indeedee first. And it was a little bit harder, even now, especially, without Dynamax. So you can withstand a lot more attacks, and then just Urshifu just crits everything, right? If you can't even get to it. The same thing here with the Ogerpon. You can just redirect things away from the Urshifu and protect it, especially against Rillaboom, and then the Urshifu just can kind of clean up at the same time, right? So lots of ideas there, and then of course you have the old coaching combination, with the Urshifu into the other stuff. So you can either do that or even just go like Tornadus Urshifu at the same time, just click Rain Dance and go for the Surging Strikes in the rain at the same time. So lots of different ways you can play the team. But you can make trades early on with the Regidrago and the Urshifu, and then in the end game, finish things off with the Zacian in the back potentially. Or you can make trades with the Zacian early on, and then clean up with the Regidrago and Urshifu in the back, ideally. So, lots of different ideas that you can consider with this type of squad. Shout outs to Benjigali, by the way. I first saw this variant when he was using this in, Limitless tournaments. He's been doing relatively well. And the build just makes sense overall. I think I have some slight differences in the Terra types, but obviously we have our own EV spreads here. But I just like the way the Urshifu just fits onto this type of team here. So, yeah, let's take a look at the EV spreads here, and then we'll move on to the next rental. Alright, so with the Zacian here, I just went Jolly 252 attack, but a little bit of speed investment here just to outspeed other base 135s. So this way you always win against something like the fastest type of Miraidon there, where you get to go first and either click Behemoth Blade into its Terra Fairy, or you get to click Terra Blast, Terra Ground, and just one-shot it. The Regidrago, of course, is going to be a standard 252-252 set, as is the Adamant Urshifu. It's the same Ogerpon as always, just outspeeding the base 90s like a timid Kyogre and then just dealing big damage back. And the same type of bulk as always. But the Tornadus here outspeeds this Ogerpon by 1 point. And then at the same time, the 228 HP, 172 defense, that's good extra bulk there to survive against another Urshifu going for a Surging Strikes of their own. And then the Indeedee here, of course, without the Psychic Seize, we didn't necessarily need the Spadef boost there, the even number in that special defense stat. So I figured I could take 1 point there and just put it back into the HP mark and then just be done with it. And that's pretty much it, right? It's also another pretty straightforward team. So yeah, let's just keep on moving with the next rental. Alright, next up is our Zamazenta squad here, and of course we are capitalizing off of the Chien-Pao Rillaboom idea. So basically with Zamazenta, you know what you're getting with the hard-hitting body presses, and the one advantage that Zamazenta has over Zacian is you don't really care about Intimidate support because you're just relying more on your defensive stat to go for the harder-hitting body presses. Then from there, if things want to Terra Fairy to resist the body press, then this is where you create the pin and go for the Steel move with Heavy Slam. And then, of course, Wide Guard is one of the best support moves right now in Regulation G. We saw Repeliper earlier, but now we're getting it here with Zamazenta. And now that just protects your entire team in general. The Chien-Pao, of course, just gives you a Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup. And it also gives you a little bit more pressure with Throat Chop into that, as well as into the Ice Rider matchup too. Because now you can go for these big Throat Chops. And then even though it won't necessarily KO, it'll do enough where you can put it in range of, you know, attacks from your other allies per se. You're making your Zamazenta hit harder, and then at the same time, you're also making your Rillaboom harder hit as well. And then from here, you got the Flutterfish combination of Chiyu and Fluttermane here with Icy Wind support and Snarl pressure. So now, again, you've got the physical attack damage reduction because your Zamazenta has a defensive boost, and now all of a sudden, now you can capitalize on special attack damage reduction when you have the Chi here going for those snarls. So now the Zamazenta is just able to stick on the field a little bit longer because you have all this damage reduction. Then you have the Amoonguss here that can just make everything a little bit easier, especially in the Trick Room games, and then the redirection support also. You also have Clear Smog for those annoying Dondozo Calyrex teams running around where you can just remove those buffs altogether. And then it's also relatively helpful against other Calyrexes that maybe have already picked up a KO. You could just remove those buffs too with the Clear Smog. Things that maybe go Terra Fairy, you know, you can also go for Sludge Bomb technically, but I do like Clear Smog in terms of just removing those buffs altogether. The Fluttermane here, once again, is providing that support role here with the Terra Grass, Shadow Ball, Icy Wind support moves here. You know, giving yourself speed control is also going to be important in general with the boost energy. So I figured that's just a great way to support it. So now, this 6, by the way, is the winning 6 from the VR challenge from Snow, aka Tomoyuki Yoshimura. So I figured let's just make a rental out of it, so this way we can get the best out of Zamazenta right now currently. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the EVs and see what we did. Alright, so our Zamazenta is pretty much max speed here. Again, just to be able to outspeed Ogerpon. So imagine Jolly Heartflame Ogerpon. You don't want to be taking those fire type Ivy Cudgels. So to be able to just simply outspeed it and potentially even just KOing it with the body press is going to be very, very satisfying. We are hitting the second bump there in the Impish Nature with 156 defense there, and then the rest is going into HP with a little bit of special defense there. Again, going for that 176 HP stat for optimization with Rillaboom, Grassy Terrain. And then the Chien-Pao over here, Jolly set here. Same thing with Chiyu, going modest 252, 252. Very familiar sets all around. The Amoonguss, of course, with the 236 HP, 236 defense. That's going to survive the ice attacks from Chien-Pao and the Calyrex Ice Rider. And then the rest just going into special defense because that is just simply what is left over. The Fluttermane EV set is the same Fluttermane EV from the other, not the previous one, but also the previous Fluttermane set there. Except now we are going Terra Grass there. So now we can simply ignore the Amoonguss and also be able to resist these Surging Strikes from another Urshifu. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and go into our final rental. Our last rental here is a Kyogre squad. So Kyogre is actually restricted. We haven't done a team building video around, and I want to do that next. Just because I think there's so many different options that you can use to play with Kyogre, depending on how you feel and what you want to value. This is the variant that we've chosen. I struggled with choosing one actually, because there's a couple ones that I wanted to do, especially with like Fluttermane, Raging Bolt variants. But I did settle on the core with Kyogre, Tornadus, Urshifu, Chien-Pao. that is the four that I like originally. And then the last two partners, I was gambling between a couple of different things, but ultimately I think just Landorus and Serena is just really, really good options altogether. Serena, of course, really good at denying priority. So you're denying Rillaboom, Grassy Glide, and you're denying Raging Bolt, Thunderclap into the Kyogre, which are two Pokemon that you're generally weak to. So if you can bring out the Serena, then that of course helps you a little bit longer. Then you have the Terra Ice Triple Axle with the Wide Lens, so you're able to KO both of those Pokemon because you're doing such big damage with the Triple Axle there. And then, you know, all things considered, you can even break Sash against a lot of different things with the Triple Axles, so I do like that. And then the Tornadus Urshifu Chenpao stuff, very standard hyper offensive mode, where the Urshifu is now dealing a ton of damage in the rain. So I swapped items between Kyogre and Urshifu here this time around. So I wanted to go Scarf Ogre, just so that I can simply lead it and then just go for these big plays where I can just click Water Spout, and then the Tornadus can also just simply click Tailwind, if anything, or even just Bleakwind Storm. I can also just lead Kyogre Urshifu stuff where, you know, we're just going for Water Spout, let things melt, and then Urshifu can just also clean up there. And then at the same time, Tornadus, Tailwind, Surging Strikes, right? That's also really, really strong. You can also go Kyogre Landorus, right? Where you can just melt things with Water Spout too, and then just, you know, have the Landorus also deal big damage in the rain with Sandsear Storm. And then it also gives you a pretty good Miraidon matchup. You know, that's why Landorus Incarnate is pretty good right now, because of that Miraidon immunity there. And they're forced to go like with their Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleams. This is where you can go Terra Poison and repin them back with the Sludge Bomb pressure. Okay, the Chenpao lets the Urshifu do a little bit more damage. It lets yourself do a little bit more damage, of course. Sucker Punch and Sacred Sword, very, very good moves altogether. And even the Serena can start dealing more damage with the Chenpao right by its side over here. So a lot of good support tools here, but you have a lot of offensive pressure, that's for sure. And that's kind of how I wanted to use Kyogre this time around. So yeah, Scarf Ogre is really good. Just give it a shot and, you know, and let me know how you do with it. But I do like Scarf Ogre right now. Otherwise, you can just simply swap the items with the Urshifu and the Kyogre. Go Protect on the Ogre and then keep the Scarf on the Urshifu. All right, so that's our last rental. Let's go ahead and take a look at the EV spreads and let's get you guys out of here. All right, so the Kyogre is just a simple 252-252 set here with the Choice Scarf. You outspeed everything. And then the Tornadus, of course, just further adds to that with the Tailwind support. And then Rain Dance and Taunt, of course. You have two Taunt users. You have Taunt on the Tornadus and Taunt on the Serena. Very helpful in the Trick Room games, of course. Otherwise, you just melt things before they can get the Trick Room up with the Kyogre and the Landorus. And then from here, the Tornadus normally would just simply outspeed another Kyogre by 1 point, but because ours has the Scarf, our Kyogre is faster. So, but against other Kyogres that aren't Scarf, you can outspeed them. And then you have the same defensive investment as the other Tornadus that we've seen. Again, that's just meant to do well against another Urshifu with the Surging Strikes pressure. Our Rapid Strike here, max speed, and then Adamant second bump there with the 156 investment, and then just dumping the rest into HP is all that is. The Serena here at 204 speed investment puts it at 118. That outspeeds Modest Pelipper. And then you're hitting the bump in the attack stat with Adamant 236, and then the leftovers also just going into HP. So similar method that we did with the Urshifu. And then the Landorus and Chenpao are just both simply 252, 252. Okay, so that's it. That is the final rental. So let's go back to the game screen and let's do one last little recap and get you guys out of here. All right, folks, so that's it. There you have it. All 8 rentals available for you guys to use throughout this month of January. Give them a go. Let us know how you do. And, you know, again, San Antonio is just fastly approaching, so you still need some last-minute coaching sessions for that. If you're still struggling to find a team to bring to that, make sure you sign up for coaching on our channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a team building session with me via Discord. You can join the Discord right now. That's free. But if you do need something for a local, or if you just need something for online ranked ladder play because you're new and you're just trying to get better at VGC altogether, you can still sign up for a coaching session too. Otherwise, if you've got locals or if you want to play something in a limitless tournament and you need a little bit of help tweaking your squad, same thing, sign up for that tier 3 sub. If you look in the video description below, there's a link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. Or if you look in the pinned comment section of this video, there is the same link that you can click to join and get a one-on-one coaching session with me. Okay, but that's it, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Enjoy the rentals. Peace out and have a good one.